Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Life Debates.
Well, good evening. I'm James MacPherson with Danica, Giorgio and Caleb Bond. And normally we talk about Danica's fashion, but Caleb is wearing Sydney Harbour socks.
Yeah, I am indeed. I know we had your foot cam the other night, shoe cam. I don't know whether we can get sock cam going here. But yes, indeed, you can see the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and somewhere underneath the boot there is the Opera House. So
Did you purchase the Sydney Harbour socks, or were they a gift?
No, I bought them.
Okay.
You're not impressed by Sydney Harbour socks?
No, I think they're very fashionable.
See?
Caleb is actually a very fashionable man. You are.
See?
Even when you come into the office, you always look very smart.
I don't have to tell you this stuff. They tell you for me. Great.
The ladies will tell you.
All right, let's get into the show. Here's what's coming up. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has had enough of the NIMBYs. Apparently the biggest obstacle to solving the housing crisis isn't decades of government incompetence. It's people who don't want a 12-storey apartment block overlooking their barbecue. UK police refused to investigate the leader of the Greens after he reposted what many took to be a death threat against Nigel Farage. Hate speech is perfectly acceptable, it seems, provided you're hating the right people. And we all know school shootings are a problem in the United States. Well, the latest proposal to keep kids safe sounds less like education policy and more like the opening scene of Terminator. Attack drones patrolling school hallways. We'll get into all of that shortly. But first, we need to agree on a mandatory retirement age for pop stars. We've got one for judges, we have one for airline pilots. Surely we can all agree on a mandatory retirement age for aging rock stars before they become their own tribute acts. Madonna, for instance. She used to be cool, but watching a 67-year-old Madonna writhing around in lingerie is less like a virgin and more like someone's grandma has escaped from a nursing home talent quest. Well, what about Barry Manilow? He no longer writes the songs that make the whole world sing. At 83, he just has a face, rather, that makes the whole world wonder whether Botox is now available by the litre. And do not get me started on Rod Stewart. Do you think he's sexy, or are you just relieved he's still got a pulse? And as if that wasn't enough, this week the Beach Boys have cancelled 30 concerts because 85-year-old frontman Mike Love needs to, and I quote, recharge. At 85, you're not recharging, you're updating your next of kin.
No.
The farewell tour has become a permanent business model for rock stars. Every year it's one last chance to see the legends. At this point, the only thing ending is the audience patience. Here's the problem. Pop stars don't belong to themselves. They belong to us. Their songs are woven into our lives. They're the soundtrack to first loves, weddings, breakups, road trips. They remind us of who we were. But every time another ageing rocker squeezes into leather pants that should have been retired during the Fraser government, they don't just remind us that they've grown old, they remind us that we have too, and that they get paid for that. Well, it's frankly wrong. Rock stars should hang up the microphone the moment they turn 60, no exceptions. Apart from Billy Joel and Elton John. Danica?
That was a real James MacPherson special, may I just say. That was one of your... I loved that. I love the way that you wrote that. That was absolutely brilliant.
I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to make a very serious point, Danica.
No, I actually disagree with you. I say good on these rockers for still rocking away. These are true hardcore musicians, and they do it not just for the love, the fans love it, but they do it as well because they're so passionate still about the songs. I actually feel quite sorry for Rod Stewart because Rod has been performing. He came to Australia twice, I think, in the last 5 years. He's still out there singing the classics, and you know what? People are going to pay to see him because his albums are the soundtracks of their lives. They go there to feel nostalgic, that they go there to absolutely love it. As for the Beach Boys, look, OK, I don't know why anyone would want to see the Beach Boys without Brian Wilson. realistically. Herman's Hermits. You'd know Herman's Hermits, Caleb. You would have no idea, James. They recently just toured Australia without their lead singer. Again, I don't know why you would bother coming back if you don't.
It's a bit like Queen performing without Freddie Mercury, right? Like it just sort of loses the.
It works. I think it works. The only oldies band that I opted out of was about, I reckon, 9 years ago, and it was a Spencer Davis group. You know, Keep On Running, Spencer Davis, James. No. 60s hits, our audience would know it. And after having a look at their recent tours on YouTube, they were like, Evening Manchester. And then it was like, Keep On Running. And they ran out of steam. So we opted out of that one. But beyond that, I would still go and see the old rockers.
Don't you want to remember them as they were, not as, Rod Stewart wheezing and gasping for breath as paramedics are running?
Look, what I would say is that perhaps if you want to perform at that age, you have to adapt your show to suit your age. Like, you do have to at some point admit that you are an ageing person. Perhaps you can't perform to the same ability that you used to. But on the whole, I think we should show grace to the aged, and in all aspects.
What's graceful
in
about
all
that?
aspects? I'm not talking. Well, Madonna's not even hit 70 yet. So, but we should show grace to the aged in all aspects of our lives, and including to people who perform. Now, if you're calling off your shows because you can't do it, that's unfortunate. But that's a reality of life. Maybe they need to reduce their workload. But in the last year, I've seen Cliff Richard live. He's 85 and he was still in pretty good form. The only thing was when he sang Ocean Deep, and he said to the crowd, look, it's quite a long song, so I'm going to bring the lyrics out for this one. But I don't think anyone in the crowd begrudged him that, because his voice was still in pretty good form. He's a man of 85. If he can't remember all the lyrics, who cares if they've got to bring the lyrics out for him? Because you still got to watch him perform, and that was a great performance. The other one I've been to, an aged rocker in the last year, Leo Sayer, who's 78. Couple of months ago, 3 months ago, 3-4 months ago, I saw him at the State Theatre in Sydney, and he is in fantastic form. So, this idea that at 60 years old you've got to hang up the microphone and stop performing, I think is really unfair. I think we marginalise old people too much as it is, and we say, oh, well, you got no place left in society. But you're telling people at the age of 60 they've got to sail off into the sunset. Why should they sail off into the sunset? They've created art and we should be able to enjoy it.
I agree, and so I actually disagree with your argument as well about Madonna, because that is quintessential Madonna. I don't care what age she is. Madonna has always been in the lingerie, the skimpy sort of outfits, and she's still sticking with her theme. Well, why not? I don't see what the problem is. That is her persona, James.
If I have to explain why not, you
well,
clearly
but
not
that's
watching
her persona. But don't buy a ticket.
Correct.
All right, let me ask you this, Karen. Do you think that 60-year-olds should be playing for the Adelaide Crows?
Well, no, of course not.
So suddenly you're ageist.
I'm sorry. If you could find me a 60-year-old who could perform as well in the football as a 21-year-old, then sure. But it's a very different thing. We're talking about a team sport that relies on multiple people to pull their weight in order to make a game work. We're talking about here individuals. We're talking about individuals.
The individuals who are performing far below their best, and yet still charging premium ticket prices.
All right. Well,
people pay for it.
This is the thing. If the AFL decided to populate, say the Adelaide Crows decided to populate the entire team with 60-year-olds, and suddenly we were at the bottom of the ladder, and we know what that feels like. Yeah, and people would not pay their memberships, and the club would be in a fair bit of trouble. The difference is, though, that you can have a performer of 80 years old, and people will pay to go and see them because they want to go and see them. They accept that maybe their voice isn't the same as it was when they were 20. They don't move as well as they did when they were 20. But they still want to go and see their favourite performers do their art. What's wrong with that?
They want to hear the hits of their lifetime, and I actually think there's something really, really special in that. And it's very special what music can do, because it brings back all of those really nice feelings.
You're 54 or 55, James?
Thereabouts.
Yeah. So in 5 years' time, are you ready to give it up?
My singing career?
No. On the couch.
Oh, it depends whether you two are still here.
Oh, well, isn't that lovely?
That's really nice.
That's really nice.
Because I wouldn't leave you.
But are you... Oh, no,
it's-
but
it's
60
very-
years old, why
it's
should
very
you keep
different.
going?
When Madonna was performing as a 25, 26-year-old and now watching her perform as a 67-year-old, there is no comparison.
Hang on.
And so all those wonderful memories of when you were young are polluted and destroyed because now you're watching Nana.
You're just offended because you don't like how she was dressed.
I don't know that I was offended. I'm just not
No,
sure that it's...
But that's why you don't like it, right?
I'm just not sure that it constitutes...
You don't like it because she was
the
in
definition
lingerie.
of entertainment.
No, you don't like it because of what she was wearing.
No, well, I had a problem with Rod Stewart as well, and he wasn't... I mean, he was wearing an oxygen
But
mask.
the way you were just going, it was because you don't like that she was at her age wearing lingerie.
Well, she's still prancing around, yes, like this...
Right.
What's the problem?
But what's the problem with what she was wearing?
What, you didn't think there was a problem with that?
No.
You didn't think it was a little inappropriate?
No.
If you're willing to pay for it, you know what you're in for.
Grandmother to be dressed like that?
My grandmother's not Madonna. Seriously. My grandmother is not Madonna. Madonna, that is quintessential Madonna.
Well, I don't think that's Madonna either.
Can you imagine if Madonna walked out wearing, head to toe covered up? People would go, oh,
well, what the hell?
I'm not going to pay to watch this.
I know. You get what you pay for. You go to a Madonna concert, like, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Anyway, as long as you don't turn up in lingerie when you turn 60. That'd,
I won't be going to any of those concerts with you guys. I'm going to go and see someone younger.
Well, what a shame. We'll have to find something to go to, Danica.
Caleb and I will have a great time together.
Exactly. I don't know who's coming up. Engelbert Humperdinck was in town recently.
No. You know
we
what
could have gone to Engelbert
So
Humperdinck.
Caleb and I like the same music, don't we? We like the jukebox classics.
Yes.
So Caleb and I would actually happily go along to a concert together. We'd have a great time.
Absolutely. But James, no.
Forget
If
James.
it's not Billy Joel or Elton John, he doesn't want a bar of it. I'll tell you what, Chris Minns doesn't want a bar. The NIMBYs, apparently, the bloody NIMBYs he's going on about. So this week, Chris Minns, the Premier of New South Wales, has announced that councils will have to come up with a plan within the next 2 years that shows they have 30 years' worth of land zoned and available for housing. So basically, councils have to work out that they have 30 years' worth of viable housing, that is, housing that can be affordably built and then sold, available within their council areas. Now, basically what the state government is trying to do is to get the councils to radically rezone land so that they can come up with this plan for 30 years worth of housing that could be built within their boundaries. And in amongst all of this, Chris Minns has complained that the NIMBYs are back. He says, yes, we're going back to the dark old days of people trying to protect heritage. Remember the green bands that went on in the rocks in Sydney that saved that beautiful part of Sydney right next to the harbour? I mean, they wanted to turn all of that into high-rise apartments and the like. Instead, we get to enjoy a beautiful historic part of Sydney. No, we're going back to those bad old days, says the Premier.
We have regrettably seen a re-engagement with that NIMBY instinct, often dressed up in language that their area needs a break. Or it's often expressed as that while they support the idea of development in someone else's area, well, their patch just couldn't touch another house.
Righto. There are two different versions of the NIMBY, I think. There are NIMBYs who just simply don't like anything happening at any time. The sorts of people who move in next to a pub and then complain that there is noise emanating from the pub. Like, come on, you just know that that's how things work. They move in next to a school or a sporting oval and then complain that there are too many kids making noise. I mean, come on, you just simply can't do that stuff. But there is what is called a NIMBY in this context by the Premier, which is someone who's moved into an area because they like that area and that area has a certain character and a certain density and whatever. That's why they've bought there. They love the place. And then all of a sudden, the council or the state government turns around and says, sorry about the fact that you spent a lot of money moving into an area that you like because it's nice and has a good neighbourhood and looks good, etc. We're now just going to make it so that you can have a big apartment building full of dog boxes go up next door. That is what Mr Minns is talking about. These are the NIMBYs that he is complaining about. I think you have every right to be upset and to complain when the state government or the federal government or the council wants to fundamentally change the face of your suburb. I mean, this idea, oh, well, you know, it's okay to do it in someone else's suburb and not mine, I don't think it's quite as simple as that either. It's simply saying that we have our cities set up as they are at the moment, and sure, we've got to have this discussion about whether we go up or out. But why do we, for infinity migration, have to say, well, my suburb is now open season for you to come and do whatever the hell you want to it and fill it up with apartments because they let too many people into the country? I don't think that's fair upon the people who live there.
Residents are not selfish for wanting to protect the investment they've made in their own community. And it's not just that you don't want apartments everywhere, it's all the infrastructure that's got to go with that. I mean, once you have apartments in your suburb, you've got traffic issues, you've got parking issues. All of a sudden, all of the facilities, whether it's schools or shops, etc., are now overpopulated. We're in Mossman, and in Mossman there's currently, 183 apartments under the planning and approval stages at the moment. And a lot of people are very unhappy about it because Military Road, for instance, in Mossman, for those in Sydney who are familiar, is already chockers full of traffic. And now they're putting apartments up. So they're going to bring a whole lot more people into an area that is already incredibly crowded. A lot of people have lived there. We haven't, but a lot of people have lived there a long time. And they're not, as the Premier inferred, just, you know, grouchy, selfish people with no regard for anyone else. They're people who want to protect a substantial investment they've made and the environment that attracted them to the place in to the area in the first place.
No, I disagree with both of you. I think it's 2026. It's time to get with the program. We have a housing crisis in this country. We have a massive supply issue, and it's only going to get worse thanks to the fact that not one state can actually achieve Labor's ridiculous standard that it's set in its own National Housing Accord to build 1.2 million homes by the end of this decade. New South Wales has pledged to build 40,000. According to new figures, it will reach about half of that by 2028, so well behind the schedule. We cannot get everyday Aussies into homes, and that is fundamentally the problem. Now, I am the first person to say we have a migration issue. I have been banging on about this for ages, and I'm not talking about migration. I want to talk about that separately. Yes, too many people have been let into this country. That is absolutely 100% the fault of governments. But right now, the priority should be getting everyday Aussies into homes. And if that means building homes, building apartments, building them up instead of building out, because we simply don't have the land, then I am all for it. And as for these NIMBYs, if you've got a problem, I'm sorry. I have a problem with the fact that we cannot get people into homes.
So you just ruin the country.
What's ruining the country about putting apartment blocks up?
You're ruining beautiful suburbs. You're ruining beautiful parts of Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane. But
we live in, okay, it's very, very different. Like I come from Perth, okay? Now, in Perth, you can build big homes right next to the city. In a place like Sydney, you cannot build a big home within a very close proximity into the city unless you are a multi-millionaire and you're living in places, you know, Rose Bay, those sorts of areas. Then you absolutely can. But the odds are when you're living in Sydney or you're living in Melbourne that you're not going to have a big property. You're not going to have the 2-bed, the 4-bed, 2-bathroom. It is apartment living. So unless you want to live out somewhere further, fine.
So you're telling people who already own a home in the inner city, and we're talking about people who, like, you know, where I am in Balmain, right, which is now quite trendy and gentrified and whatever, but you don't have to go back that far, and it was a pretty rough part of Sydney. So if you bought a place in there, you know, on the cheap, 40, 50 years ago, because you thought, you know, this is a nice place by the water, it's close to the city, whatever, and now you're telling those people who are probably, you know, 70-odd, enjoying their lives. You've just got to cope with the fact that we're going to put up dog boxes next year. Get over it. Get over it.
I'm sorry, but we have a supply crisis. We've got to put property somewhere. Yeah, get over it. I'm sorry. We've got to put property somewhere, Caleb. And we are going to have to build more apartments. That's the reality. Because we need to make homes quickly. And we're not going to achieve any of these targets unless we start building up. We've got no choice.
Why are we so obsessed in this country with having to shoehorn more people into already bulging cities? You look at our capital cities, particularly Sydney and Melbourne, and they are overrun. And we are obsessed with shoehorning more people into them. Why don't we send people out further? Get them away from the capital cities.
I'm talking about everyday Australians. I'm not talking.
I don't care who we're talking about.
Migrants. I have an issue with the migration rate. I'm going to make that very clear. I've had a migration, and I stand by my record on this channel. I've said it a million times on this channel. But everyday Aussies, you can't just expect people to go out and live an hour or two outside of the city, Caleb. I think that's a very, very unfair expectation.
All right, then make every migrant live outside of the city, so the houses in the city are available.
Go put migrants outside.
Yeah, they should totally be doing
Put migrants outside. What I'm talking
Done.
about is mums and dads and their kids who don't want to live 2 hours outside when they've got mum and dad who live in inner city. They need help with daycare. They need help with childcare. You can't just expect people to move 2 hours out in order to get a bigger property.
You can't just expect people to be happy with a place going up next door with dog boxes on it either.
We have to build more homes, Caleb. We have to build more homes, and we're so far
You're saying they all
behind.
have to be built in the inner city. I'm saying they shouldn't be.
But that's where people work.
I think
Don't you want to live near where you work?
The apartment idea is going to be counterproductive anyway, because a lot of people are not going to want to live in boxes in the city with no infrastructure to service them. So they'll naturally end up going to regional towns and cities anyway, because it'll be a better lifestyle. And so you'll end up with the character of our cities fundamentally changed. And I think that's what we don't want.
And look at the resale value of units in Sydney at the moment. Terrible. Has been for years.
Well, house prices have dropped anyway.
No, but has been for years.
Well, prices have dropped anyway.
I know they've dropped, but the resale value for units in Sydney's been terrible for years, because fundamentally, you're right, people would prefer to live somewhere larger. I just don't know why we're so obsessed with filling up the inner city.
Well, you know what? Got to build homes. We've got to put Aussies into homes, I say. And if you look at the budget documents, supply is going to be down about 35,000 homes as it is. So thank you very much, Labor. Well done to Labor and its National Housing Accord. Let's talk about school shootings in the US. We know that this is a common occurrence, which is such a blight on the United States. But now they're rolling out new technology to try and counter shootings by way of drones. Now, these drones have been just tested in Florida, and they're now about to be deployed to 8 schools. So the way that these drones work, and you can see here on the screen, so that they are going to sit in the ceiling, mounted, armoured and self-contained, and then they connect to the internet. So basically, if somebody busts in with a gun, a teacher can press an emergency button. These drones then get deployed. And to quote how they're used, it says they can reputedly race through school halls at up to 95 kilometres an hour, blaring a screeching alarm and flashing strobe lights. At the business end is a battering ram and a pepper spray gel punch. At a pinch, they can be turned into guided missiles tasked with knocking suspects to the ground. Now, whilst I must say I'm quite highly impressed by the look of that technology based on those videos, and I think you referred to it as almost an Armageddon, did you say, at the start of the show?
It reminds me of like Terminator.
A Terminator. The way that they're able to whiz, I think that the technology is good. How sad and how tragic is this, that the US has now resorted to drones, to technology, because it fundamentally won't deal with the issue at hand of gun control, that this is their big solution. I think it's actually an admission that nothing is going to change in America. This is basically saying, sorry, kids, sorry to the educators, we can't get a control of the situation, we don't want to, but here's your drones. So if something happens, press an emergency button and this will give it a go. Already now we have teachers and kids being told what to do in the classroom in the event of a shooting, which I think is absolutely terrifying. And now what we're going to teach teachers how to use drones in case they're under attack? I mean, this is just sad.
The teachers don't operate the drones. They push an emergency button that then goes to a drone centre. Correct. Where they are commanded. These drones were developed by a company that were inspired by what's happening in Ukraine. So it's essentially military technology that's being put into a school context. What I'm curious about, Caleb, is the developers have said it's going to operate like a sprinkler system. You know, you get a fire and all of a sudden from the ceiling, water is deployed. Instead, you have a school shooter, drones are deployed, except a sprinkler system doesn't have to differentiate between perpetrator and victim. So there's a lot of questions about this. What if a teacher is mistaken as a perpetrator, or somebody runs and is mistaken as the shooter rather than someone trying to get away? Schools are already ordering this system. They pay a monthly subscription fee per child. This would be worth billions and billions of dollars if most schools in the United States sign up for it. It's been tested, but not in a real life situation. So, you know, mock scenarios are very different to an actual shooting. But as Danica said, they're at a bit of a loss as to how to protect kids, and parents are demanding more and more. We want to see the security before we enrol our kids. So this looks like it'll be taken up across the United States.
Fair enough. I reckon we should order some and use them here as a police tool. If they work, it sounds like a brilliant idea to me. I mean, the reality is that the United States is never going to unpick its gun culture. You know, it's literally the Second Amendment. They were pretty early on in the piece when they decided that the right to bear arms was integral to the United States. So that ain't going to change. Trying to unpick America's gun culture just simply is not going to happen. So unfortunately, as part of that, you have to accept that there are lunatics who have guns as well, and sometimes they go and shoot up schools. So you've got to have some kind of mitigation measure in place.
Would you prefer to have armed security? They could spend a lot less money having armed security guards in schools rather than drones.
I don't think that'll make a difference. I think that'll probably be worse, to be honest, if you had an armed security guard. All it takes is someone with a high-powered weapon, and that security guard's dead in a second.
Security before they get there. Yeah. Look, the means by which it happens, I don't particularly care. Obviously, security has to be provided, but I think this is fantastic technology. Like this is in terms of policing, because this could be used in far broader context than just in school.
Absolutely.
Right? This has got to be the greatest technological development I've seen in law enforcement in a long time.
Yeah, well, we've all seen this in movies, right, where drones are going down the street chasing crims. That they wanted to put taser technology in these drones, and they've been told no tasers in drones going down school hallways. But you do wonder where that technology will go next if it's approved. Do we have machine gun shooting drones going down school hallways next? Speaking of technology, Donald Trump has said that Chinese robots will be banned from importation and sale in the United States for two reasons. Primarily because of security. He says that drones collect data and therefore provide foreign hostile nations with spying advantages. Not only that, he says they can be remotely commandeered. So if you've got humanoid robots in your country that are manufactured and reporting back to a foreign country, essentially you could have imported a robotic army into your own country that then turns against you. That's his first problem with this. The second problem is that China is leading the race to develop robots. The United States is trying to catch up, and so by banning the importation of Chinese robots, that will presumably give the United States manufacturers a helping hand. What do you think? Good move or bad move?
I don't think there's any world in which you could say it was a bad move, surely. Why would you knowingly import the potential enemy's infrastructure into your country? I mean, you know, there's a reason that we don't have Huawei technology involved in our 5G infrastructure in this country. There's a reason that Huawei has been banned in the UK and the US, etc. as well. Because you don't want... Because you've got to remember that Chinese companies, although they may not be owned by the CCP, are required to, if they were asked, hand over data and all this sort of information to the CCP. And so if you've got robots, which of course would be collecting data and sending it back to the mother country, to the manufacturers, etc., that's stuff that is available potentially to the CCP to get hold of. So I think it's entirely fair to say that you shouldn't be able to import a Chinese robot. And to be frank, I mean, we should be doing this here with all manner of Chinese technology. I mean, the cars, you know, the Yutong buses that a number of countries, including the UK now, have proven contain effectively a kill switch. You know, we've got Chinese vehicles being imported into this country en masse. BYD is now the second most popular manufacturer in the country, and these cars are effectively listening devices. I mean, they gather so much data and information on the people who drive them, which for 99.99% of people probably matters very little. But if it falls into the wrong hands, it could be valuable to the CCP.
I don't understand why our politicians are driving EVs, 30% of which the available taxpayer-funded EVs for our pollies are vehicles like you talked about, Caleb, and they've been told don't plug your phone in, don't have confidential conversations in the car. Well, maybe drive a Toyota instead.
Oh, well, we can't do that. Chris Bowen wants you to drive his electric vehicles from China. What are you talking about, James? Come on. Well, so China controls 85% of the global humanoid robot market, I was reading. 85%. And yet we know that China is no friend to the West. We know that here in Australia. We've seen it in our own backyard off the coast of our country, right? So we've got these robots, and a lot of research has found that they have data collection, remote hijacking risks, and this all undermines Western nations. Yet we have leaders around the world who are so scared they basically bend over to China at every opportunity, Australia included, the handsome boy does. And finally, we've got Donald Trump saying, no, our national security is at risk. We are not having these robots in this country. I wish that more leaders would have a spine and have the guts of Donald Trump to say no and put their own national security first. And we should be doing that as well, because it is a worry. But we thought that we would take an opportunity to show everyone our favourite robot compilation, because, well, it just speaks for itself, doesn't it?
China.
I feel like we've played that clip virtually every week for weeks now.
To be fair, that was not the best advertisement for Chinese robotics.
But, you know, if they're doing that stuff already, just wait until they seriously get going. We could be in a bit of trouble. Let's move from China and the US to the UK, where, I mean, this is an extraordinary story. And if you needed any more proof of just how the UK has lost its way, I mean, you know, we talk about two-tier policing. This is a pretty good example of it. What you see on your screen there is a photograph of a bloke wearing a T-shirt with a guillotine, obviously, and it says, "We're only making plans for Nigel." Of course, that is Nigel Farage it's referring to, basically saying, you know, we're plotting to kill the fella. Now, Zach Polanski is the leader of the Greens in England and Wales, and Zach Polanski shared a post on Instagram. Now, for those who are uninitiated, say I put a post on Instagram, right? I've put up a string of photos. In this case, there were 20 photos in the entire post. I can then tag people who were, you know, involved in it, in some of the photos, whatever, invite them to be a collaborator on the post. Now, if you accept that, what it means is my post also appears on your page. So you're effectively counted as a poster along with me. It's our post, not just my post. So Zach Polanski, the leader of the Greens, accepts to become a collaborator on an Instagram post that contains a series of photographs, including that photograph. According to Mr. Polanski, it was the 5th photograph along in the collection. So he's accepted to be a poster on Instagram in a series of photos that has a bloke wearing a T-shirt effectively calling for the death of Nigel Farage. Now, to you and me, that would sound like an endorsement by Mr. Polanski of this T-shirt. He said, yes, I accept, I press the button to be part of this post, and it now appears on my profile. So this was referred off to the police by Reform UK. Police have come back and said no crime has been committed here. I mean, can you imagine if anyone else, if someone posted a thing, you know, saying, oh, you know, we're planning to kill Sir Keir Starmer, or, you know, we're making plans for Zach Polanski or someone else, that it would be not taken as some kind of death threat or incitement to violence? But no, Mr. Polanski accepts that being on his Instagram page, and that apparently is not a crime in the United Kingdom. And, to make it even worse, he refuses to apologise because he just says, oh, it was a mistake.
You want to take this opportunity to apologise to Nigel Farage?
Well, if I'd done it deliberately, I'd be apologising. But because this was a mistake, I think the important thing is that I point out it's a mistake, that I also make sure that I condemn political violence, and also, crucially, I make a commitment to be better on my social media.
OK. Do you want to apologise then or not?
No. The reason for that is because Nigel Farage, when I posted this, or when the person posted it, it got less than 1,000 likes. Nigel Farage then took it, cropped it, so it made it look like I posted it, which I think was fundamentally dishonest. It's now had 3.2 million views. So actually, this whole conversation has been seen more because Nigel Farage, Lee Youssef, and I think Richard Tice posted it.
So he's basically saying, oh, it wasn't my fault because they pointed out that I'd accepted a post on my page that's basically incitement to violence. It's Nigel Farage's fault, I'm not apologising. So there's that, and the fact the cops won't do anything about it. It's extraordinary.
So you mean to tell me that people, like comedians like Graham Lynham, were arrested for making comments about trans people? Lucy Connolly, a British mother, was arrested and jailed for what police described as hate speech. But when the left make comments which are incitement to violence, the two-tier policing suddenly kicks in and Zach Polanski and his warped Greens and co lefty members are not arrested. That is the ultimate hypocrisy in my view.
What I love about this is that Polanski posts a photo calling for Farage to be guillotined and then claims that he's being attacked by Farage.
Yeah.
And somehow he's the victim in all of this. Amazing. All right, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, we'll look at what's making headlines tomorrow, including calls for the Prime Minister to discipline an MP who's accused of assault. That's next. You know, whenever we're looking at the next day's papers to bring you on this show, we're always quick to look at the Northern Territory Times because they always come up with good headlines, don't they? And today, no exception, Caleb.
What's the Northern Territory Times?
NT Times, NT News.
That's the one.
That's the one.
Look, I don't know the name of the paper, but the headlines are fantastic.
I was going to say, have you been looking at some paper that I didn't know existed for all this time?
Sorry, the NT News. It's the Northern Territory News.
NT News, yes. It's got the Thai beef. Federal MP charged with assaulting administrator. Pressure is mounting on Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to remove member for Solomon Luke Gosling from his special envoy roles after he was charged with 2 counts of assault against Northern Territory Administrator David Connolly. Mr Gosling, who was arrested Thursday morning and later bailed, strenuously denies the allegations. Now, of course, the reason they go with the headline Thai beef is because this all took place allegedly at the Grand Thai Festival in the Northern Territory. It's quite the carry-on. I don't see, after someone has been charged, how they can continue in a senior role. And, of course, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But generally, the accepted thing to do is to stand aside in the meantime. Doesn't mean he should lose his job as an MP or resign entirely or anything, but it's generally accepted convention. I don't know why, he can't just do the right thing himself and say, look, I fully deny that any of this has happened, that I will be proving my innocence, but in the meantime, for the good of the party and the government, I'll step aside. And failing that, why the Prime Minister hasn't done it himself.
Especially a Prime Minister who is always going on about his standards and contrasting his high standards with everybody else's poor standards. It was only a couple of days ago that the Prime Minister was going on about Barnaby Joyce and his behaviour towards his dog, as if somehow that proved the One Nation member was somehow worse than anyone in Labor. I would suggest that allowing a man to continue in his position while facing criminal charges is a little worse than yelling at your dog.
I'd say so. I'm just shocked that the Prime Minister didn't sort this out immediately today. Is he just going to drag it on into the weekend now? So... OK, let's take a look now at the Australian exclusive PM's big seniors moment. Anthony Albanese is facing a fierce rebellion from state governments over his plan to abolish higher private health insurance rebates for over 65s. As new polling shows, nearly 40% of seniors in outer suburban and regional electorates are more likely to drop their cover under federal Labor's policy. The health ministers of New South Wales, Queensland and Tasmania told The Australian the deeply concerning decision to scrap the higher rebate for over 65s would put further pressure on their strained public hospital systems in an escalation of national cabinet tensions. You know, what on earth is Labor doing, creating this class warfare? Labor has been going after retirees and seniors from its taxes and now to higher health premiums when we know that this is the age cohort who need their health premiums the most and who are, most of them probably pensioners as well. They don't have a lot of money. And then what, to fork out more money on top of what is already very expensive in this country to have private health. What is the Prime Minister's problem with people over the age of 65 in this country.
Well, and it's, you talk about class warfare. I mean, it's fundamentally worse for people who are of a lower class, right? Because if you can afford to cop it because you've got lots of money in the bank, well, so be it. But, you know, if you're like my 90-year-old nan who's been paying for her private health insurance for years and years and years and done the right thing and thought she was doing the right thing by herself and by the system, because, of course, it also frees up space in the public system, and then all of a sudden you're being told, sorry, you've been doing the wrong thing all this time, against all the advice that you've ever been given. You know, if you're a pensioner, how are you meant to deal with this? And then, of course, as the states point out, it'll just put more pressure on the public system. How's that a good thing?
There's a great need to save money in this country, but saving money by penalising our elderly, and especially when it comes to their health, is not the way to do it.
Absolutely.
As long as they're not rockers. James would have an issue if they were rockers.
Oh, gosh.
He'd say take away their private health.
Absolutely. He wouldn't cope with that.
Well, I mean, you don't require oxygen masks if you're not trying to act like a 20-year-old.
What is your problem, James?
My problem?
Negativity.
We've done my problem. Go on. What's the other story?
OK, housing downturn hits home for bank. National Australia Bank has revealed a bleak outlook for home lending after new mortgage applications crashed 15% in the June quarter, mirroring a plunge in auction clearance rates. The bank also said more business borrowers could be in distress, with loans classified as on watch up to 8% quarter on quarter, raising the possibility of rising rates on arrears. NAB Business Banking Executive Andrew Auerbach told The Australian the higher level of loans on watch reflected the impact of our challenging environment. We're seeing customers most affected by things like fuel price and the Middle East. And the government's negative gearing and capital gains tax changes are thought to be accelerating the housing downturn. Well, who would have thought? Who would have thought? Are we surprised? Though, of course, Jim will just blame foreign affairs as always.
Labor never found a problem they couldn't make a lot worse. Front page of the Herald Sun. Before we get to the main story, the photograph on the front page of the Herald Sun is, remember Hayley Lewis, who won gold in the pool at the Com Games, 36 years ago? Well, her son has just won gold for Australia in the pool at the Commonwealth Games. She was there to congratulate him. So that's a great story. The main story, though, kid gloves are off. The story says teen car thieves and carjackers will face longer sentences under a coalition plan to dramatically expand its adult time for adult crime crackdown. The Liberals' first big policy move since Ben Carroll ousted Jacinta Allen as Premier will double down on law and order, an area they see as their major strength against the state government's poor record on crime. Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I would say the coalition need to come out with some big policy announcements over the next week, because Ben Carroll is sure as heck making announcements every day, or at least hinting at them, trying to recover Labor's reputation with voters. So good to see the coalition on the front foot in Victoria.
Strike while the iron's hot. On the front of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow says ultimate betrayal, an exclusive here from the great Julie Cross, NDIS poster boy, jailed over $700,000 fraud. Former NDIS poster boy has been jailed for scamming the system he helped champion, exposing just how easy it is to rip off. 15 years ago, James Davies was celebrated as a disability advocate. But in 2020, while working as an NDIS planner, he falsely amended the plans in a scheme which siphoned off thousands. I mean, how many people must have their grubby mitts all over this system, rorting it, stealing money from both the taxpayer and disabled people, left, right and centre? I mean, it is just sick the way this thing has gone.
It is a disaster, this scheme, from the very beginning. It's an absolute behemoth, as we know. Have a look at this fascinating story on the front page of The Advertiser, My Deep Fake Hell. The District Court is embroiled in scandal after staff generated a deep fake image of an Advertiser reporter being arrested and circulated it to colleagues. But Attorney General Kayam Ma and the court's administration authority initially refused to implore staff involved to cooperate with police investigation. Police have been unable to investigate the case involving Advertiser reporter Charlie Dadds, who has never been arrested or faced a charge. The Advertiser unwittingly breached a suppression order, which can result in journalists and editors being jailed, and the deep fake was to depict Mr Dadds being apprehended for contempt of court. What on earth? How does this happen?
Well, so what happened was the paper published a story that, as they say, unwittingly revealed an identity that they weren't aware was suppressed. Of course, they fixed that very quickly when they became aware of it. And then one of the Times' reporters goes into the court one day, and one of the court staff says, "Have you seen this photo of Charlie getting arrested? They arrested him for contempt of court." And they're like, "What the hell are you talking about?" And it turns out this had been AI generated by people within the court who then had distributed it to judges' associates. And so they're sending, allegedly, this photograph around trying to say that he's been arrested, and people took it seriously. Now, that is an offence under South Australian law. Producing an image that unduly embarrasses someone or something along those lines is actually an offence. But to this date, the court has refused to cooperate with any police investigation. I mean, so the court might jump up and down about, contempt of court because you unknowingly broke a suppression order for 5 minutes, which you could be charged and sent to jail for. But someone within the courts breaks the rules. Oh, no, well, we're not going to cooperate with the police. And this is the justice system. Interesting, isn't it?
There you go, South Australia. All right, we're going to go to a break. When we come back, Melbourne preschoolers stage a daring escape from their kindergarten. But what were they so eager to get to? We'll tell you about that after the break. Welcome back to the program. Caleb, the UK has a new Prime Minister, but not everybody is aware.
And could you blame them? I mean, 7 Prime Ministers in 10 years they've had in the UK. And so I think this chap in an aged care home in North London, Golders Green, probably speaks for all of us.
Andrew.
Yes, that's it, yeah.
You are the local candidate, are you?
Oh, no, I was a local candidate. I had a by-election a few weeks ago, but no, I'm now the Prime Minister.
You what?
Is the Prime Minister.
What, a new one?
Another one.
But I keep changing every Friday.
I know.
I mean, he's spot on. What, another one? Can you blame him?
No, you can't blame him. I mean, who the heck is Andy? Just call me Andy, the man of the people, apparently. The king of the north.
There's pretty good political commentary at the old people's home there.
I reckon.
All right, most people think The Great Escape was a 1963 Hollywood blockbuster starring Steve McQueen. Well, it turns out that was child's play. The real Great Escape took place in Melbourne on Monday when a pair of preschoolers broke out of their kindy so they could get home early to watch cartoons. The pair, aged 4 and 5, removed some temporary fencing from the playground at their kindergarten and ran almost a kilometre to get home, where they sat down to watch K-pop Demon Hunters. Parents were home at the time, informed the kindy, who was still looking for the kids, but hadn't yet told mum and dad they were missing.
Oh, that's terrible.
A little awkward.
How on earth were those kids? I mean, they must be very smart. Those kids are going to be future engineers or in the construction sector or something. But, I mean, that's a blight on the kindy, isn't it?
Well, it is, particularly that they didn't tell the parents that they'd gone missing. But, I mean, kudos to the kids. They knew what was happening.
They knew what was happening. Well, look, have you ever had an overdue library book? What about an overdue library book that's 116 years overdue? Well, a grandson of a man has returned his grandfather's books 116 years after they were borrowed. Avid reader Walter Griffin Owen checked out Paradise and King Lear over a century ago in North Wales. The books were kept safely at home in his family's care while he served in both world wars. Had Mr Owen still been alive, he would be facing a fine of 6,032 pennies or the princely sum of just over £25. There you go. How's that?
I think if you forgot to return the library book because you were busy fighting 2 world wars,
I think that's okay.
You shouldn't have to pay the fee.
But also, having found the book after 116 years, who then goes, oh, geez, I better go and take this back to the library. They might be missing it.
Well,
I think they might have bought another copy.
One of the books was Milton's Paradise Lost, so there you go.
There you go.
Stick around. Coming up is the Rita Penny Show. We'll see you next week. Good night.